What a pleasure. What an absolute pleasure to be here. Last time I was here in Vienna, I was 16. It's 34 years ago. I was backpacking. Mostly what I remember when I was a 16-year-old from Australia, in Austria, was throwing snow at all the beautiful monuments and trying to get Mozart in the eyes. I'm a little bit more mature now, but just a little bit. I got so much to talk about. Luckily, we're starting a little bit early, right? Do I have extra time? Oh, it's not working? There we go. Let's see. Damn it. Hey, there we go. Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you, Austria, for speaking so much English as well. It's very easy for me. Everyone speaks English so well, and even the menus are all mixed German, English, and like it's super user-friendly for me, so thank you. I'm half German, actually. My mother is from Germany. Unfortunately, because my father is Greek, we never spoke German at home, and I never learned German, which is I'm very sad about. So I'm going to be speaking English here. The Moodle project is the last 20 years of my life, and we've come a long way, and I have a lot of things I want to tell you about what's happening now and what's happening in the future, because this period of Moodle's history is a time of lots of changes that are happening. So I will eventually get to the future of education, which is something that I think we should be thinking about. But this is roughly what I want to cover, a bit about me, about Moodle, what educators need, current projects, and the future. So I come from the other Austria, just 2 letters different, and I flew here yesterday. I had a really good sleep last night, actually, hopefully again tonight. The middle of Australia looks like this, a little bit different. And I grew up in towns like that, where I was the only European child. I was just living in Aboriginal communities. And so my school was on the radio. I had pet kangaroos. These are personal photos. These are some of my friends that I played with. That's how my homework arrived. This is back in the late 70s. I'm 50 now. I just turned 50 a couple of weeks ago. And this was a major way we got transport from the nearest town was about 1,000 kilometers away, Kalgoorlie. So you'd have to usually fly in a plane or drive for 3 days through no roads, just sandy tracks through the desert. So the plane was a bit more efficient. And most of the communication was School of the Air. Now, some of you may have heard these stories before, but some of you haven't, which is why I'm showing them. But my classroom was about the size of Spain, because that's where all the other kids were. And we had CB radios, so it was actually shortwave. So the shortwave, the technology, because the distances are so far, it's over the horizon, you have to bounce the radio signals off the atmosphere and then down again. To travel these distances. And so it's a lot of, you talk and then over and so on. It was successful enough that when I left that period of my life, when I was 12 and we went back to the city, to Perth, I was 1 year ahead of all of my people my age. So I skipped a year, and then I was like extra young going through high school and into university. So my high school was where I got into computers, and back in those days, you didn't have your own computer. It was mainframes, and we had one big computer for a lot of schools to share, and an acoustic modem with you put the phone on an acoustic coupler, and you'd have to program it using punch cards, and you'd send your program off, and it would get processed, and the results would come out on a printer. And that's how I learned to do programming. It gives you I'm mentioning this because not a lot has changed in how computers work. We've just built layers and layers and layers. And now people use Docker or something and spin up instances on Amazon. But underneath all that is still basically the same stuff going down at the low levels on the CPUs. And I worry that people, now we have these supercomputers in our pockets and nobody knows how they work. And that's something that we need to make sure all the generations have some understanding. Anyway, I have a computer science background. I got into computer science eventually after started with engineering. That didn't work out because the computers were too much fun. And I have education degrees as well. And so Moodle started, I started working on Moodle when I was at Curtin University in 2001. And this is a animation showing me working on files. And it goes very quickly from here, where I'm all alone in 2001, to, I can't get the, where is it? Oh, I haven't got a slider bar here. I was going to skip forward. Anyway, in a year or so, you start seeing other people starting to join, and other people joining and working on little pieces, and sometimes big pieces. And some of the early people who were joining were from Europe. A lot of people were from Europe. And this part of the world. Here we go. Start seeing some people joining in. And due to the beauty of us using a code repository, this is all this history is completely stored for the last 19 years. Now, Moodle is it's a platform. And yesterday at the Dev Camp was such a beautiful example of people building little things on top of that platform. And it was amazing projects yesterday, and I really want to see most of them get back into core at some point, or at least be in the plugins database. And the beauty of it is that so many people are now involved, it's just a thing we all own. This is the beauty of open technology. It's not something I own, or you own, or any one of us own, or any organization. It's something that we all own together. I just planted that seed and got it started, and I've been trying to make sure we could fund the development and put structures around it to make it a sustainable project. So here's me with a few people from our Barcelona office. At the core of Moodle is the Moodle Headquarters, the company that I am the CEO of, that I founded to support Moodle. That company, we have 80 people, 85, and we are mostly in Perth. There's about 35 people in Perth, and there's 20 or 25 people in Barcelona now, because we needed somewhere in Europe. And I was asking around, said, hey, would you come and work for Moodle if it was in Dresden? No. Would you? I was asking about a lot of different cities. I didn't ask about Vienna, I'm sorry. But when I mentioned Barcelona, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I would move to Barcelona to work for Moodle. So we went there. We had a lot of people already there anyway. I will be moving there myself over time. It's taking a bit longer than I expected to move halfway around the world, but we're getting there. The rest of the company is spread out. We're very remote, and we work very remotely, and we're trying to really practice all the newest possible ways to collaborate online. So we're very flexible now. Even in Perth, you go in the Perth office, half the people are not there. They're at home. Because they only come into the office when they absolutely need to. So we save a lot of travel, we save a lot of time, and ideally it shouldn't matter where you are these days. You should be able to work and study and learn and create and collaborate from everywhere. So my job these days is mostly being like the face of Moodle, the promoter, and that means lately I've been doing even more travel than usual. So last year I did 380,000 kilometers. I went 12 times around the world and 64 cities, a couple of honorary doctorates. There's me in Rwanda with some gorillas, a lot of conferences, a lot of meetings, and And particularly now, what I find is because of Moodle being so well known, there are a lot of doors open to me. I can walk into any Ministry of Education in the world. I can and say to them, why don't you run a Moodle conference, right? And have a serious discussion where they eventually go, yes, that's a good idea. And so what I'm doing is sort of pushing on this stuff and making things happen. So let me tell you a bit of stories about what's happening lately here. If I put this, will probably... So the yellow dots are all places I've been to. And this year, I've been really focusing on this region here. So this is Perth. It's a tiny town, very far away from everything. It's the most remote city in the world. Like if you look at how far it is to the nearest city. But in our time zone, this time zone has the most people in the world. There's like 2 billion people in our time zone. And yet the discussions between Australia and the rest of Asia, there's not a lot going on there. There hasn't been traditionally. We're always here in Europe, we're in the US, and so on. So I've been really focusing on Asia, and I've been to most of these places this year. Just my last place I was in Sri Lanka. And there's a huge change right now. Asia is very old. You know, there's some of the oldest cultures in the world are there, and incredible civilizations from the past. But right now, it feels like everything is being redeveloped. Everything's up for grabs. It's hard to generalize because all these countries are as different as the countries in Europe or in the rest of the world. They're very different. But if I had to make a theme, they are trying to skill everybody. They're trying to push everybody's skills up very fast. They are not necessarily following the Western models, and they should not. Because look where that's got us, right? I'm not sure the Western models are the way forward. There's amazing good things that are happening in the Western world. There are also some really crappy things. And most of the world's problems now are because of all of these plastics we're developing and all of these bad structures and governments. And there's a lot of problems that have been created. And so they have a chance to do things new. And just as an example, I go to China. I've been going to China on and off for the last few decades. Anyone here been to China? Recently? So there's a lot of cities, right? And a lot of these cities are only new. They've only been built in the last 5-10 years. And you stand in some of them surrounded by skyscrapers with beautiful architectural designs, and you're in the street, and there's bicycles and, motorbikes and things going past you and cars, completely quiet, silent, because they're like 100% electric. So it feels like you're standing in the science fiction future, right? There's amazing things happening there, and the Chinese government has the ability to kind of force policy in a much quicker way than we're used to seeing. Very interesting. Indonesia has almost the same population as the United States. It's got like 280 million people, primarily Muslim, all spread out over thousands of islands. They need distance education. They're working on distance education on scales I haven't seen anywhere else because they have to reach all these remote places in jungles, in islands, and so on. India, obviously another huge populated part of the world, and it's so big actually, and the salaries of teachers are so low that whenever we have a MoodleMoot there, the only people who show up are usually technical, they're like developers and people who run Moodle companies. The teachers don't come because to fly across the country is too expensive for most teachers. So we're actually changing it. We aren't going to have a single conference there. Next year we're going to have a road show. So myself and a few other people, I had hoped for a bus with Moodle on the side. I'm not sure it would be awesome. I think if we get a documentary filmmaker with us, it would be really great. But anyway, we're going to have a roadshow and travel all around India and have a sequence of micro conferences that are like 6 or 7 in many cities. Cover the area. Let's look at Africa. Now, Africa is another area I haven't been to very much, but last year I was in Rwanda, and I have to say what impressed me about Rwanda, and again, all these countries are so different from each other, but you remember Rwanda had a genocide in 1994, where 1 million people were killed in 100 days with machetes. Imagine the scale of that tragedy. How many people don't have any families anymore? The French and the Belgians had a huge, they're the reason for that happening. So this country has had this enormous wound on it, and their reaction to this genocide is, we are going to fix everything. And I have to say, the stuff that I saw there, places like Australia could learn from. Every month, they have a community service day. On a Saturday morning, everybody, from the president down, gets out into their local communities, and they pick up rubbish, they dig trenches for optic fibres, they build schools, they do all kinds of local development. Then they all have lunch together, so 200-300 people in a circle, having lunch together, passing a megaphone, and they all have a chance to say what they think should happen in the local community next month. But there's this community building, very intentional community building to heal wounds from the past and also improve the country in the future. And the result is a country that I felt was like ahead of Australia, as one example, by decades in terms of its social technology, if you like. You know, in Australia, it's kind of the American model. Everyone lives in these suburbs all spread out, very far from each other. You go to work, you come home, you watch Netflix, you go to sleep, right? And it's completely different. I feel like all we're doing is going further and further apart, and you have more political problems because you have all these people thinking different things and not working together. So anyway, we have a big conference in Côte d'Ivoire, in Abidjan, in a month or two. At eLearning Africa. I know some people here are going to be there. Now, Europe I don't need to tell you about, but there's a lot of Moodle stuff happening all over Europe, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the UK leaves. But things will carry on as they always have, and we have tremendous support for Moodle in this area. We actually now at Moodle have we have a commercial team. We never had this before. People who look at the business of Moodle. And in this team, we have one person looking after each part of the world. We have someone in Asia. We have somebody for this part of the world, and he's here now. Jose Marcos, he's at the back there, just waving. And we also have someone in South America, Renzo. And I'll just point out Uruguay as a place I was. It's again, all these countries are completely different from each other. Anyone been to Uruguay? It's 3 million people. It's not massive. It's a very progressive country. Not only because it's a 100% Moodle country. Like every institution uses Moodle there. Every single one. And they were also one of the first countries in the world to let women vote. It's a very, very forward-thinking, very social country. I really like it a lot. So, yeah, I'm traveling a lot. My next stop after this is I'm going to the US. I will wear a helmet. And I'm going to go to Washington. And my first stop is actually, I'm going to visit the World Bank. When I was in eLearning Africa last year, a little Indian lady came up to me, quite short, and she said, "Hello, I'm your biggest fan." And I said, "Oh, thank you. Who are you?" And she said, "I run the eLearning division at the World Bank." And I went, "I did not know you knew Moodle." And she goes, "Yes, we've been using Moodle for 10 years. Every time the World Bank does a foreign project where they usually loan money to a country to solve some big problem, and they help the country sort it out, and they expect to get return. It's a bank, after all, but it's a development bank. To make these projects be a success, you have to educate everybody. And they always build a Moodle site. And they use it really intentionally and very heavily. And I was like, why don't you give us a call? So I'm going to go there again. I was there already once, so they're becoming friends there, and I'm going to go there again, and I'm going to get them much more involved in our projects and sponsor a few things and get us more involved. A bit later, I'm going to be in LA on this trip, and I'm going to attend the, in September 20th or so, there's a global climate strike going on around the world. So the Moodle company, we are supporting this 100%. Everyone at Moodle can go to this thing. I'll be there then, so I'll be at the one in LA. That should be crazy. So yeah, a little bit of a look around the world. But look, it's a small planet, right? It's not big. And that's kind of the theme of what I want to talk about here is the fact that these things we are working on, while we recognize the different cultures, and it's so important to recognize different cultures and different things that people are doing, we are all sharing a little planet together. And there are different ways to live, but we all depend on each other. So you know what Moodle is, right? It's an open source learning management system. I'm not going to go too much into this detail. This was the original sort of schema of how the design works of a core learning platform, how courses are built up of different activities that are these plugins. But our mission is about empowering educators. It's very important because most of the new software education technology that comes out, a lot of it is not about empowering education institutions. It is usually, the dialogue is, our education institutions suck. They're really bad. They're failing. Teachers can't do the job, blah, blah, blah. We're going to bring in this new direct-to-students program, right? Some sort of an app or a website or something, and they go straight to students. It's sort of the Silicon Valley kind of speak. And I'm very much against that. I see there's like 3 big camps in the world right now. There's the existing education systems, and it's so nice to hear from the rector, damn it, he's just left, but about what's happening here, very forward-thinking, great stuff happening here. In other parts of the world, they're still really struggling to make universities really relevant. But that's the first army, if you like, of educators. The second one is all these companies trying to capitalize on that and go straight to students. The third one is kind of all this self-learning that's going on, this kind of social media, people learning off Facebook and all sorts of places about how the world works. There's a lot of problems with that too. I'm not sure I'd want if I had a terrible illness, I wouldn't want my doctor to be trained on YouTube, right? I would want to make sure they went through a proper university program. So our focus is that first group. We are here to support educators to do the best. And we do that by making a platform. And we do it with values that we try and always promote and try and stick to. So we have these 5 values. Education as a value. That every situation that you're in is a possible education situation. You can be talking to someone over a beer. You could be with your family around the table. You could be in front of a group of people, very smart, attractive people. But there's always a chance to educate and to see the potential of educating in that situation. The second value is openness. We are very open as a project. We don't just say, oh, we have a version of our software that's open. Like, we're open to the core. Everything is open. The whole process is transparent, and we try and encourage openness. And it works. Just yesterday, again, at the BarCamp, seeing what people did with that openness was incredible. Respect for cultures, respect for different ways of doing things, and people's contributions. respecting the community of teachers and students and customers and partners and even competitors. Anybody who's trying to improve education is good in my book. And integrity. So it's very important these days because there's a lot of fake news, there's a lot of lying, there's a lot of manipulating, and there's a lot of, let's say, businesses in the world that are capitalizing on people. They're farming us. They're stealing our data, they're selling us stuff we don't need, and they're farming us to make profits, right? And this is not integrity. Like, I think we need to think, what is the human right thing to do, and how do we make that happen? And let's all be honest about it. And if it's not working, let's be honest it's not working, and fix it. So that's very important. And I think you can't have an open source project to be successful without that, because people know when you're lying. And innovation as a value, very much focused on not how do we make something to sell, how do we make something so that other people can innovate. And again, yesterday, totally great example of that. So Moodle is all over the world, and these are the statistics of registered sites that I got this morning. What's really interesting is that the number of sites goes up and down, but all of the other numbers go up very significantly. So there are a lot of sites that are growing in usage. A lot of sites are using Moodle more heavily, the bigger ones. Does anybody want to have a guess how many students are in the largest Moodle site in the world? This was a site I only discovered about 2 or 3 months ago. I didn't even know it existed. Anybody want to have a guess? How many students? Largest institution? 10 million? That's pretty high. That's 2 million. 2 million active students on one Moodle site. This is the Chinese Open University in Beijing. They have a team of about 30 people maintaining this Moodle site. A lot of servers, it's a big complex thing. It's a beautiful thing. They're hosting a Chinese MoodleMoot there next year. Worldwide, the last statistics we have, well, the best statistics that exist is that Moodle's in about 60% of higher education. But Moodle is also used, as well as higher education, it's also used in development organizations, like I pointed out. So these all use Moodle quite a lot. It's used in K-12, in schools, and in workplace. A lot in workplace. Is anybody here more familiar with Moodle used in a company training context? A couple? A few of you here? Okay, cool. It's actually, the numbers there are really large. We don't have all the numbers, but we're working on it. But some very large companies use Moodle, and defense. Like military love Moodle because it's open source. They can check all the code, they know it's secure, they know they can trust it. They can't trust anything else. So we have so much military using Moodle that we are trying to get together a military MoodleMoot. We're just military. And it's going to be hosted by these guys, the Royal Air Force in the UK. And I said, would you be okay if like the Russians came as part of this? And they said, yeah, we do this all the time. They already have military conferences discussing technical things where they just, they share information quite freely, and it's very interesting. So, yeah. All right, so let's look at that word, the empowering. What does that mean? I know this word doesn't translate very well into German, or not quite with the same finesse. So in English, it just means the educators should have extra power. They should have more arms. They should have more brains, more reach to be able to do more things. Power is such an interesting concept, and different languages translate power very differently. But that's what we're trying to get across here. So what gives educators power? Well, you need tools, resources, and skills. So tools, you need things to work with, things like Moodle, you need computers, you need rooms and chairs and, you know. Resources, you need people around you to, you know, enroll the students for you, administration, that kind of thing. But you also need graphic designers, perhaps. You probably need instructional designers. You need a team. And you need skills. Skills are as an educator to bring those things together to actually put your students through an experience that achieves what your goal is. That you want those students to come out of there with having learned and increase their own skills. So let's look at what's happening in Moodle in those 3 areas. So there's 9 projects here which address those 3 areas. So let's start with the tools. So we'll look at the Moodle LMS. Recently we've kind of refined the language about how we talk about Moodle, the learning management system. So when I say Moodle LMS, it's Moodle Core plus the Moodle plugins. So Moodle Core is the thing that Moodle HQ puts out twice a year, but the plugins ecosystem is more code there than in Core. So that's a very important part of the whole system and how it comes together. So we call all of that the Moodle LMS. So I won't go on too long about all what's happened 3.6, but we've been working on the dashboard. We're splitting things up into blocks. The dashboard is the place that brings together all of the activities happening in courses, and we need to improve that user experience. It's kind of the hub, and you're supposed to go into courses and come back, and go in and come back, and go in and come back. So everything rises up to the dashboard. Another thing we've been stressing lately, and I've been personally pushing this, is messaging. Now, how many people here have switched off messaging on your Moodle sites? Anybody? Yeah, a few of you. And I know why. I know all the reasons why, because it wasn't very good. But if you look at your own usage of these devices, what are you doing more than 50% of the time? You're messaging, right? You're messaging your family, your friends, colleagues. Messaging is becoming the way that you access the internet. You aren't going to Google and saying, show me articles about something. You're tuned into some social media, Twitter, Facebook, blah, 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 and your network through messaging is passing you links to interesting things, and that's how you're learning what's on the internet. The messaging has become the interface to a lot of the learning that you're doing, that I am doing, that we're all doing. Moodle's messaging needs to improve because it needs to be part of that movement. Our messaging needs to be linking with all the other messaging. It needs to be on these devices how you find things, how you know what's going on. So we've been slowly improving the messaging, working on the group messaging. You can control it still, because I know educators want to switch off messaging because they can't control it for some people. Oh my gosh, students are going to talk to each other. But, so that exists, but it's on by default. It should be on by default. Like you need to give them a chance. Where it should go is, you know, if you send somebody a link to a YouTube video in a message, and most messaging platforms will show you a preview of a thumbnail of the video and maybe the description, right? In Moodle, we know all of the Moodle stuff. So if I sent you a link to a, some resource, you should probably see a preview of it, get an idea of what that is, right? So now you've brought the resource into the chat. If I send you a link to a choice activity, a poll, it could show you a preview of the poll and make you go there, but actually what we could start doing is making the interface for that poll appear in the chat. And so now you could just say, oh yeah, pick the answer directly in chat and not leave the chat. So over time we can bring the interfaces more and more into that stream of discussion. A bunch of other stuff happened in 3.6. improving audio and video recording all through the texts, some quiz, drags and drops, and some management at the course level, and this new feature, which is really the beginning of a lot of stuff for universities. You can now hit a switch and lock, or we're using the word freeze, a course, make it read-only. But not only a course, it could be just an activity, make that read-only, or a category. So it's very often the case you want to let students access courses for years, but you don't want them changing anything or changing grades or anything. So you want to just lock it so that this now exists in 3.6. Plus we have, that number's old actually, over 1,600 plugins and a lot of new things are coming in all the time. 3.7. One of the things that happened in 3.7 is actually old. This is the old Moodle interface. This is pre-Boost. This is how Moodle used to look. And a lot of people still like that look. But that got upgraded to use Bootstrap. And Bootstrap is anybody, who here is technical? Who knows what I'm saying when I say Bootstrap? Can I have some hands? Wow, okay, cool. That's like 80% of you. So the fact that Bootstrap can work in this old theme format, if you have a theme where you're relying on this kind of style, the old-fashioned internet look, then you can still use Bootstrap in your themes. But more importantly, what it means is we can start using Bootstrap reliably in the content. So if you build content with Bootstrap CSS and stuff in it, you can give it to somebody else and they put it on their Moodle, it's going to work. So we have a reliable Bootstrap 4 layer throughout Moodle content and plugins and everywhere. There's improvements on the forum interface, so you don't have to reload pages to make replies. You can have private replies back to just one student. A few other things around locking and pinning and starring discussions in the forum. And there's more of that coming in the next release. More improvements on messaging, blah, blah, blah. It's not what I'm here for. But I'm sure you know most of this stuff. You can mute discussions. A lot of it's catching up with what normal messaging systems do. And there is now a connection between competencies and badges. We now support other badge systems, other badge backpacks. So your badges can be sent out not only to Mozilla now, you can also send them out to Badger and other things. And there's improvements in the analytics stuff. Is anybody here using analytics? Playing with it? A couple of you? I would love for you to come and talk to me if you're not already working with our analytics team, because we want people who are actually trying to use it to work together to build that up. So maybe there should be an analytics session this next couple of days. Where I see analytics coming eventually is that eventually we have Moodle being like a chat bot, and it's messaging you and saying, hey, something happened, something interesting is happening, you should come and look at this, or this student's going to fail, you know, talk to them. That chat bot could sit in the group messages, in the group messaging as well. So imagine it's you, a couple of students, and Moodle, all in a group messaging situation. And you know, you're talking to each other, and you go, oh, hey, Moodle, how many people haven't handed their assignments in yet? And Moodle says, there's still 3 haven't done it yet. It just talks back to you. So it becomes something you can talk to, like Siri or on Apple or Google Assistant, etc. Custom field types, blah, blah, blah. Now, we dedicated this release to a university. You may, if you've been following Moodle for a while, you may have noticed I had a picture of my children on every release notes since the beginning. So in the very beginning, I had one kid, and she was, how old? 1, basically just born. And that girl is now 18 and driving my car, and she wants to become an international human rights lawyer. It's not really appropriate for me to keep putting photos of her on the Moodle releases. what we're doing now is we are dedicating each release to an important contributor from the Moodle community. And the Open University in the UK has been a huge contributor for many years and a big supporter. We are looking for someone for the next release. The good thing is we have so many to choose from. It's really good. So something that we've decided to do for the next 2 releases, 3.8's in November and 3.9 is next May, is Polish. Not Polish. The people from Poland. Although we're happy to have lots of people from Poland. Anyone from Poland? No one. Okay. But we're going to be polishing. So we're looking at fixing small bugs, the annoying things, the low-hanging fruit, the simple things that have been sitting there for years and no one's fixed them. Let's focus on the little things that are annoying. And you guys were fixing some of that yesterday. The one that won is, for me, one of them, the administration menus, the way they change and whatnot. Oh, gosh, I've been wanting that fixed for years, like you have. So there's a lot of that, mostly that. The only significant new functionality that you'll see is a bit of work on forum coming from the MUA, but this. So is anyone using H5P? Can I have some hands? About 70% of you, I'd say. So the way H5P currently works in Moodle is not very good. Like, it kind of works, and you can get things done if you know what you're doing and you're careful, but you can also really mess things up. And Moodle plus H5P, imagine you're a new teacher and you come to a site that has Moodle and H5P installed as it is today. The interface of the whole thing together is not awesome. You add a interactive, what's it called? Interactive thing, a content type. And then you have to go to a second activity chooser, which is separate from the Moodle activity chooser, and a whole different experience. Students get an H5P activity. It looks like it's testing me. It's assessing me. I've got grades, right? I'm getting scored. Do those always go in the grade book? No. Is this something I have to do to get grades for this course? It's not clear, right? It's not part of the Moodle system. So our job here is to integrate it very well deep into Moodle. So we're doing this in two lots, and we are working together with H5P team to do this properly. So the first stage that's in 3.8 will be putting the H5P player into core, allowing you to insert H5P content in Atto in the editor. This is just an early mock-up, but just to give you the idea, so you can add H5P into content everywhere in Moodle. And there'll be a filter, a standard filter, that will make sure these all play properly everywhere. The second step in 3.9, so in next May, will be to really embed H5P into the current activity chooser. So when you're adding an activity to the course, you can see the Moodle activities and H5P activities and LTI as well, all in one big chooser. That's the plan. Also, when you're in a quiz and you want to add a quiz question, the H5P content types will be also options. So you can add an interactive video as a quiz question. And those grades go into the quiz and part of the reporting and into the gradebook, and it's all connected. So that's the plan. I don't know why there's a Moodle.org screenshot here. I was going to say something. But yeah, there's a lot more plugins. A lot of the community are building around these platforms too. The things I'm pointing out are just some of the core features. Okay. Wow, I'm going to go faster now. How much time have I got left? Let's see what we got here. Okay, I've got time. Is anybody here interested in Moodle Workplace? Have you heard of Moodle Workplace? Anyone heard of Moodle Workplace? Okay, a bunch of you. So over the past couple of years, Moodle Headquarters, together with a bunch of partners, Moodle partners, have been developing Moodle Workplace. So Moodle Workplace is Moodle Core all the Moodle plugins are still compatible, but there's now Workplace plugins to extend the functionality, particularly for training in a more corporate environment. So it's not degrees, it's short training courses, learning pathways, and so on. It has a new interface as well, and it includes multi-tenancy, which means one Moodle site can look like many Moodle sites. You can have an organization hierarchy, so managers and teams. You can have certifications, so when you finish things, you get a certificate. There's a report builder, because reports are very small ad hoc reports are very important in the corporate world. So you can drag and drop fields and make a report easily. There's support for programs. Programs are, first you need to do this course, and then you need to choose one of these 2 courses. And then you have to do all of these 3 courses. And then you have to do this course, and then choose one out of these 2. And at the end, you get a certificate. So that kind of setup is possible. There's dynamic rules. You can set up groups based on patterns and user fields and things like that, etc. So there's a video here, I'll give you a quick demo of some of it. This was announced in February, but is only starting to become available like now. There's no sound with this video, or maybe there is. I think there is, but it's not on right now. The things that are in here were chosen and designed by partners our Moodle partners who have a lot of customers, a lot of clients asking for these things. A lot of those partners had developed many of these things themselves for that market. But they all develop their own, and they have different ones, and so they're all redeveloping things. And so this was like an attempt to have a common core of these additional features to support these kinds of things. Now, it turns out that quite a lot of these things would be useful in university. And if you're in university, you might be looking at some of that and going, yeah, I could use that. Well, the plan is that we are keeping Workplace a bit separate, but over time, there'll be a regular transmission of these features into core. So we'll be slowly releasing them into core over time. But this is also a very big, important part of Moodle's sustainability. I have to pay 80, 85 people every week, right? Our partners, most of our money is coming through partners who pay with their royalties. So this is something that we have developed with our partners as a kind of unique product for them to use with clients to sell. And that means more royalties towards the Moodle project. We have more people working on the core, doing the things we have to do. So for the time being, for the foreseeable future, the latest version of Moodle Workplace will only be available through partners. But as I said, some features will come into core as we work it out. All right, Moodle Apps. So we have Moodle LMS, and we have 2 versions of the app. We have the free app, which is available on all good app stores. And we have a branded app, which is a customized one for you. Same for Workplace. There's also 2 versions of the app. There's the standard one, and then there's a branded one. So the Moodle app is really going quite well, I think. Is anybody here using the app? You're encouraging your students to use the app? Okay, not so many. The purpose of the app is to make it work on your phone and on your tablets. You can download whole courses offline. You can work and synchronize back later. This gives it very good use cases in third world countries like Australia. It supports live notifications. This is really important because most teaching and learning involves feedback. You need to have feedback loops. If a student does something, the best time to get feedback is immediately. Now, that's not always possible, but if you use notifications, you have a better chance of having shorter, tighter feedback loops. And so building those things into your teaching will really help. There is also a version of the app for desktops. So you can have the app on a laptop device or a desktop computer as well. And we have a branded one. This is a paid service. So you get this through a partner, and it's actually built though by our central team. We have a central team that does this. We already have hundreds of branded apps for different users, and we basically transform the app to look like your institution exactly. So students have a very good experience. They would search for TU. I don't know if TU have an app like that, but they would search for TU, find it, log straight into the Moodle site directly, and all the colors match, and it's all good. All right. So that's all tools that we make. Now let's look at the resources. So I've mentioned Moodle partners a few times. We have about 90 Moodle partner companies around the world that are helping institutions with services of all different kinds. Training, a lot of our training is done by the partners, and customizing and so on. In the DACH region, there are 4 Moodle partners currently. See Didactic, Andres is right here in front of me, and everyone else is here in some form or other. So that's who we recommend to talk to about Moodle services. We also have integration partners, and this is a new one, not announced formally yet. It will be on Friday, so this is like early information. This list of partners is going to grow significantly. We have a backlog of partners of potential partners that we're working with, of something like 15 companies. My preference is towards open companies, open education technology. But the environment is the environment, and we need to work together, and we need to create solutions for people that work today. So, partners. Okay, Moodle Cloud. Anybody here have a Moodle Cloud site? Got some hands? A few of you. You can get one for free. We have 38,000 Moodle sites on Moodle Cloud currently. Most of them are people just trying it out. If you want a quick Moodle site of the latest version and you just want to play with it, try it out, see how your course looks in it, you can get one for free. And they're mostly small sites. You can't add plugins to them or anything. They're commodity. It's, for most of you, I imagine, not suitable at all for production use. You'd run it yourself or go to a partner. But if you just need a quick Moodle site, it's there for you. It's something we provide. MoodleNet. For me, this is the most exciting thing that we're doing at the moment. It's still early days, but this is our new social media platform for educators, specifically for educators. It's a place where you would be getting ongoing professional development because you're hanging out with other teachers doing the same subject at the same level. And you're also together sharing and curating content. The way we're building this is it's a whole new product. It's not based on Moodle. You may have heard of MoodleNet that we had before, and earlier attempts even. These were built on top of Moodle core code, and as such, were not great. And we never really had an effort to put in to support it. So when we came back to it, because I wanted to have another shot at this, I said, let's completely start from the ground up here and build a whole new system. So this is not even using PHP. This is a new software. It's using Erlang and the Elixir framework, which is a programming language designed for very high intensity like transactional processing, so a lot of data going backwards and forwards between systems. It uses ActivityPub, which is a W3C standard for also passing information, feeds of information. You may have heard of Mastodon. It's like an alternative to Twitter, completely open. This uses the ActivityPub protocol. And importantly, this is not a centralized system. We're building this as a federated system. So there'll be MoodleNet servers all around the world connecting to each other, and you'll be able to search the whole thing. So to a user, it feels like one system, but it's not under the control of Moodle HQ or any one person. And what we're trying to go for is we're trying to build something for the future here, a really open, private, social network that you can get in or get out of whenever you want to, where there is always useful information for you as an educator, and there are the people you need to talk to improve your practice as a teacher. So you're a brand new teacher, you're looking at a blank course in Moodle. What do I do? Well, on the side of Moodle, there's going to be a button that says, hey, you need some help? Come to MoodleNet. And you pop into MoodleNet, and it says, what are you teaching? What language? What part of the world? Helps you find groups of people, of other teachers who are already ahead of you, who may have already found really good content for your needs, who may have developed a Moodle course that you can copy, just drag it into your Moodle site, and you get a good start. So the Moodle sites will connect to a MoodleNet instance, and they'll connect to each other. We will run an instance that all of the ones that we trust can connect to. And when I say trust, there are certain conditions that we want to promote. So we want to make sure that we're not introducing, let's say, heavily racist or alt-right kind of things in there. We're actually starting to think about a bit of intentionality about the content, because this is a social media network, right? So we have to actually have some. We have to try and build the system so that it's a good system, that it doesn't just become a big, pile of crap. It's got to be something really usable. So we have to start thinking about who joins into this network. It'll be open as long as you follow some very basic, simple rules, and it's very hard to define rules like that. So we need the help of everybody. If you want to get involved, here are some screenshots. This is going to be launched in November. These are early, actually. It's already changed since now, these. But if you want to get involved, moodle.com/MoodleNet is get in touch with the team. We got 4 people who are the core team, and we need people to help come on board with this and help us build it and make it something amazing. Like, we would like it to be like email. Email is old, right? And who owns email? Nobody. Nobody owns email. It's a completely... Oh, you do? Oh, okay. Sorry. I was wondering where it was. Can I have another email address, please? No, email is a completely decentralized, federated system that uses a standard, and I can make an email address and email any of you, and you can email me back, and it just works, right? It's incredible. It works way better than lots of other newer systems. I bet you all used email today. Anybody didn't use email today? So we want this social network to be kind of like that, but for educators, some sort of a place for sharing content, and discussing around it. Another resource that we're working on is with development partners. I mentioned all these before, that we have projects now with all of these, and we're trying to encourage them to work to provide their project funding towards Moodle stuff. So this one here is in Cambodia, where they are giving phones to homeless kids that are preloaded with Moodle app and course materials. They can't get these kids into schools, but they can give them phones. And that's a really interesting project. World Vision is another one. There's United Nations and Save the Children. This is in Bangladesh. There's the particular project where they're getting education to girls who've been taken out of school. As soon as they hit puberty, their parents take them out of school because they're worried something might happen to them at school. And so they just take them out of school, right? So they don't get an education. So this project is trying to get education to them in their homes, and this is a whole big distance education thing that's happening. This year I joined the board of the Open Education Consortium. If you haven't heard of it, take a look at it. This is a consortium of people who are trying to really promote open education, mostly content, open education resources, but other things too. And there's about 300 organisations around the world who are working together and meeting together, and they have an annual conference, and it's good stuff. IEEE I've been involved with. I would like to see their standards work get a bit more recognised and for them to focus on more practical standards. E-Learning Africa, we have a MoodleMoot running inside this conference, which has been going for 14 years. So there's a one-day MoodleMoot inside E-Learning Africa, and so on. These are just, there's a lot of people doing good things, and we're just trying to get involved and be some of the technology glue for that. Another thing is there is a variety of initiatives for these national networks, and it's not on here, but one of the most exciting ones to me is the one in Uruguay that I mentioned, because like I said, 100% of their institutions use Moodle. They're all hosting individually. And I can go to the government and go, hey, you realise all your education is running on Moodle. Shouldn't we build a Moodle cloud for your country? Right? And they're like, yes, we should. And so it's becoming a very interesting conversation now. Okay, let's build that together. So you own it. Now they will own it, but they have a lot of money to put into it, so why not help Moodle get better at the same time? And last but not least, the Moodle Users Association. I know a lot of you here are probably members. This is an organisation that is specifically designed to help fund core developments. And there's some statistics here of some recent stuff with involvement from the DACH region. So we've got the course overview block, Luca Bosch, sitting right here, involved in that with Thomas Corner. Thomas Corner's not here, is he? Haven't seen it, no. The Moodle Forums, there's started by the Moodle User Association of Japan, which is now a member of the Moodle User Association. There's filters proposed by Catherine, somewhere here. Course copy user interface. So about 265,000 euros of core development have been proposed and designed by the MUA and then built and put into core. So here are some of their faces. In fact, I would say this part of the world has a very strong influence inside the MUA. What's that? 18 members. I mean, look at that. That's a very large German-speaking influence over this international organisation. So it's very, very cool. So I want to thank all of you who've been involved in the MUA and helping drive that. It doesn't function unless people just help and do bits of work. But everyone here has volunteered, and they're helping drive it forward. So if you're not a member of the MUA, consider becoming a part of the MUA. The way it works is members propose projects. There's a voting cycle. They pick the most likely projects, the most wanted projects, and then they put their membership money towards paying developers to get it fixed. All right, last two things. I realise I'm about to hit a time limit here. This is about skills. One of the things I know, when I started Moodle, I thought, hey, if I'm really thinking about pedagogy and I'm building this system with pedagogy in mind, everybody's going to be really pedagogical and it's going to be fantastic. This is not true. People do horrible things with Moodle all the time. So we've built a curriculum based on this European standard framework, DigComp Edu. Anybody heard of DigComp Edu? A couple of you. It's 22 competencies for educators to teach online. These are not necessarily Moodle competencies. These are just things that are good to be a good teacher online. So we have built a curriculum with badges. There's 22 courses. You get badges. The badges add up and you get certificates. You even get my signature at the bottom. And this is very aligned with those European standards, and we're getting it accredited in many institutions around the world. This is going to be part of a new degree in a Spanish university for the first time. So half of the degree is actually this MEC. And it's very exciting. The first phase is the MEC is only available through our partners. So you do training with partners and certification through the partners. We are exploring in the future licensing the MEC direct to institutions to train your own trainers internally in specific cases. And lastly, Moodle Moots. So Moodle Moots are a great place to learn and get your skills. These white dots are all the places where there's been Moodle Moots recently. The orange dots are places where we have Moodle drinking parties. And I wish. And this was the French one, and you know, most of you have been to, you're at one at a Moodle Moot now. But yeah, we have a lot of them. The big news is, for the very first time, we're having a global Moodle Moot in Barcelona in November. And that's looking really good, beautiful town. So MoodleMoot.org to find out about that. Now I want to very quickly, in the remaining couple of minutes, talk about the future here. What does improve our world mean? The world is full of massive problems. If you look at the civilizations from the past that are now gone, the Roman civilization, the Egyptian civilizations, etc., they often failed because right at the end, maybe it's a cause or maybe it's a symptom, but at the end, there was massive inequality. There was some people who were very powerful and very rich, and there were lots of people who weren't, and there's some kind of revolution or everything falls apart. Our inequality in almost every country in the world right now is going up. The gap is widening. It's a danger sign. We have climate change. We have refugee problems. We have pollution. And there are a lot of people addressing it. But the UN have summarized these under the SDGs. Moodle clearly falls under the education goal. But actually they are all education, right? You can't fix any of these without educating a lot of people. So we need to have some long-term thinking here. We need to be thinking not how we can fix individual little problems, but how can we fix humanity in a way? Like, how do we fix our civilization, right? How do we have a whole civilization of people who are like that? The government in most countries is so short-term focused. You know, I don't think anybody in the UK has talked about anything other than Brexit for the last, 3 years. In Australia, they talk about the most ridiculous, stupid things. They don't care about long-term things. They're very easy to distract. The big Silicon Valley companies and the big profit-focused companies are not caring about what our generations look like in the future, because the board decisions are always what makes the most extra money for our business. The NGOs, as I said, are doing good things, but they're mostly project-based. Often they don't work together. I had a really interesting meeting in Online Educa in Berlin last year with about 10 NGOs in the room who had all developed the same courses in parallel on Moodle. And I was like, guys, I'm so glad we could get together and we've got to work this out. And the IEEE and standards bodies, they develop good things. I mean, it's so cool I can plug my laptop into this plug. But on the e-learning side of things, where are the standards? You know, the standards bodies are there's a boys club in the US called IMS. There's a bunch of other standards bodies doing different things, but there's not enough work on the high-level stuff. So what I would like to do is I would like to work out a way, how do we get SDG thinking embedded into all the curriculum? I don't mean, hey, let's teach everybody what inequality means. But I mean, say you're doing a mathematics course, and you could say, if you have 10, and you got, what is 10 minus 6, right? 4. You could teach it like that. You could teach it like this. You could say, I have 10 apples. I give 6 apples to a homeless person who needed it more than me. Now I have 4 apples. Right? So there's different ways of teaching every concept by introducing this kind of agenda. If those ways of teaching were in the content that was sitting in MoodleNet, if that was flowing through to the world, to teachers, where the easy content to grab was good content, we have a chance of influencing a lot of people around the world. So open education and open technology together, they allow this kind of stuff. I'm rushing because I realise I'm over time, and that's a very, very bad thing to do here. At least it's not Switzerland. But most of the world runs on open source. We always forget this because these people don't really have a marketing budget, right? The big companies will go, oh, look at Amazon's success, billions and billions of dollars. It's all open source software. They've just taken open source software and then used it, right? It's all Linux and all this other stuff. So what I'm trying to do is promote a collaboration between people who believe in the education technology area that we can build and collaborate more. So Moodle is one piece. Who knows? We may decide in 20 years or 10 years, maybe Moodle is not the thing. Maybe we should chuck away Moodle and move to a new thing. Okay, let's all talk together. What is the new thing? What should we build for the next 100 years? What is the open education infrastructure to make the human race a good thing that looks after its own planet, that looks after itself, that does things in a fair, equal way, that doesn't allow, just by design, bad things can't happen, right? This is ambitious, right? But underneath it is some sort of technology. And I don't think Microsoft are going to build it for us. Or Google. We need to think more open technology working together. So we've created a space in November 21, 22, right after the global MoodleMoot, because we use the same venue for the next 2 days, where it's going to be a working conference, and I've invited lots of people who are building pieces of the problem to come and work together. And so we're going to be brainstorming and working together about what sort of standards don't exist yet that we should build. How do we make this product and this product work together better? Ultimately, if you're a university, you should be able just to go to a place and say, I want this piece, I want this piece, and this piece, and this piece, and they all just work, like a university in a box. So that you don't spend millions of dollars or euros rebuilding everything again and again and again. There's a general level of infrastructure that just works, like Linux. Nobody says, hey, let's build Linux again, right? It works. So that's it. So we're getting all these people together. By the end, at the end of this 2 days, we're going to have a Open EdTech Accord. I wanted the Open EdTech, the Barcelona Declaration, but that's already been done. But something, a statement of what we're all trying to do, what is the goal, and then we can all sign it. So what I would love for you to do, if you think you can contribute to that, think about coming. But more than that, if there's products you use, so like Nextcloud or lots of other things out there. I mentioned Nextcloud because I was looking at someone who I know works with Nextcloud. But all of these other products, I want you to ask them to go here, right? Send somebody, right? Or be involved. That's all. Because that's what we're trying to create. So I'll stop there. and I'll let you carry on with the day. I'm looking forward to the rest of the day. Thank you for letting me go a bit over time.